Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Lil Low Down from the A-Trey Gangster Crips. Now, Low Down, born Carl Welch, was born in 1974 in South Central LA. Now, in his early years, he would see the war between the Rolling 60s and the A-Trays kick off and turn extremely deadly. Now, by the 80s, LA would be hit with a wave of gang violence sweeping through the city. Law enforcement would call this an epidemic. Now, in 1980 alone, it would hit over 1,000 homicides, with 351 homicides being gang-related. And over the next few years, the numbers would only increase. And by 1989, gang-related murders would hit 554 out of 1,600 homicides total. Now, Low Down would attend Washington High School in the midst of all the gang violence. And this school in particular was plagued with gang members. So it was obviously a matter of time for Low Down would get put on to the A-Trey gangsters. Like many other young kids his age, he would be immersed into the gang violence, which involved shootings and fights. Now, once the 90s came along, the homicides would even increase much more. Now, Low Down would find himself in and out of jail for minor charges around this time. But in 1992, his hood, the A-Trays, would make the national headlines. Some of Low Down homies would be arrested in the assault of a truck driver during the Rodney King riots. Now, in that year, 1992, gang-related homicides would hit an all-time high with over 800 murders. Now, as the violence continued to escalate in Los Angeles, Low Down remained active in the streets. But not long after, he would become a father. But he would not be able to enjoy this time because only a few years later, in 1994, he will be arrested along with another individual for 3 counts of felony sexual assault charges. Now, Low Down will plead not guilty, but ultimately, he will be found guilty on all 3 charges and be sentenced to over 12 years in state penitentiary. Now, while locked up, his family would come and see him, which included his 2 young daughters. Now, around this same time, gang violence on the street had hit an all-time high, but it was also just as violent as it was in the streets in the California prison system due to a lot of racial tension. Now, as the years went by, in 2009, Low Down will be released for penitentiary after serving a total of 15 years. Now, once back on the street, he will reconnect with his family, but also get back in touch with his homies from the A-Trays. Now, because of his crime, he had to register annually for the rest of his life as a sex offender. And any failures to do so will result in him going back to prison. Now, Low Down for the next several years will stay out the way and trying to stay on the right path. But in 2014, he would find himself locked up yet again after evading the police. Now, he would plead no contest to this charge and spend a total of 22 days in county, but he would be given 3 years probation. Now, around 2016, he would reconnect with one of his homies from the A-Trays from back in the day. Now, his homie had just got done serving 24 years in prison after being locked up in 1992 during the riots. But in 2019, Lil Low Down will be arrested for failing to yearly register as a sex offender. Now, because of this, he would find himself back behind bars. And by 2020, he will be released back to the streets. Now, although he wasn't active as he was back in the 90s, he was still a member of the A-Trays, so staying strapped was a must at all times. But this exact choice to keep the heat on him will ultimately bring trouble to him. And in 2021, Low Down would be arrested on gun charges. He would, in fact, get a bond and eventually get out. Now, while awaiting trial, Low Down would start dating a female from the Brims, who he would build a close relationship with. Now, although he was dating her, by law, he was still married. Now, with things going well with his new girlfriend, everything would take a turn for the worse right after his court date. And in 2023, he would be found guilty on those 2 gun charges and be sentenced to 2 years in state penitentiary. Now, after serving his time in 2025, Low Down will be released and reconnect with his girlfriend. Now, he will also around the same time start working at a dispensary in South Central on Florence and Normandy, located in the A-Trays hood. Now, it's said that Low Down was responsible for the rent money that he was known to keep in his car from time to time. But eventually, death will come knocking on Low Down's door. On January 31st, 2026, Low Down would head over to 70 and Western Avenue to meet up with the young homies from the A-Trays in a nearby parking lot. Now, it's unknown the exact reason for this meetup, but there are a lot of speculating rumors, but we're just going to stick with the facts. And the facts are that Low Down will be in this parking lot for nearly 2 hours with other members from the A-Trays, and by 9:45, he'll be assaulted by multiple members. He will be brutally beaten until he was unconscious on the ground, being stomped on all over his body and especially in his head. Now, afterwards, one of the suspects will run inside his car and grab that bag out which was full of the rent money for the dispensary. Now afterwards, all suspects would flee the scene. Now the female on scene would call 911, who would arrive shortly after. By the time the EMTs arrived, Lil Low Down would be pronounced dead at the scene due to severe blunt trauma. Now his girlfriend, who was on scene, would tell police that he had been attacked by his own homies, but she would not tell officers any more information other than that. Afterwards, officers would start gathering intel, which included speaking to Low Down's wife and the dispensary shop owner who he worked for, who would tell them that Low Down more than likely did have a bag of money inside of his car. Officers would eventually obtain surveillance footage from the nearby parking lot, which would show the entire event unfold, including Low Down's death. Now the detectives working on the scene would connect with officers from the 77 Division, who would identify the suspects in the footage as Norface, a known 8 Trey gangster member who was seen on camera kicking Low Down in the head. They would also identify Aunt Hefe as another 8 Trey member on camera who was seen initially breaking up the argument with Low Down and another individual, but later on in the footage would show Aunt Hefe slapping Low Down as he was on the ground. Not only was he seen participating in the assault, he was also seen on camera being handed a bag from another 8 Trey member named Irvine Theus. Now by April, police will put out arrest warrants for all 3 individuals from the 8 Treys. Now on Facebook, the female who was allegedly on scene will post a very interesting statement, and she will go on to say, "They are going to pay for what they did to you that they should have done to me. It wasn't your battle." So it sounds like there could have been an issue, possibly with members of the 8 Treys and this particular female, and it somehow escalated, but I am not 100% sure. Now in May of 2026, all 3 suspects, Aunt Hefe, Norface, and Irvin, would all be arrested on felony murder charges. And as of right now, all 3 men are awaiting trial. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.